Hopefully I've got my sound turned on. Hi Ruby, how are you? Excited? It's very exciting. We've literally just finished filming what was going to be tonight's video, but it's just going to take too much editing to do. So we're going to just sit out here. It's a gorgeous day. You can see the sky's blue. We're heading into spring. Can anyone hear me? Say hello if you can hear me, by the way. I think the other day we forgot to plug the camera in. So I tend to put an external camera because the camera from inside the laptop picks up the fans. Ruby Glitter. Can you hear me? Just a quick hello if you can hear me. Or just say yes, you can hear me. Hey Leslie. I went a bit earlier, Leslie. I know it's still late, but it's lovely that you managed to get in. Oh, Tara's in. Justin FBS is in. So we've just finished filming. It was meant to be tonight's video. The birds are going. It's one of those gorgeous days today where you can hear, it's the weekend, so you can hear all the Byron is in, Dems, Critter, Lay 2036, Wanderer of the Desert. How are you? Good to have you in, Jacob. How are you? FFSS, lovely to have you in. Have I missed anybody? Possibly. Lay 2036, shout out. You got a YouTube channel, buddy? You can hear me good. Now, I know that where we are at the moment, the internet, we've got national broadband. So any of you Aussies out there know what it's like. Absolutely hopeless. So where we are at the moment, we've got what they call national broadband. So it's not that good. We're hoping that we'll get better internet in the next couple of weeks. So it is a bit laggy, and I apologise for that. But you know, it is what it is. I've set the settings as low to a lower resolution. Hopefully it's going to work. It's one of those gorgeous days where you can hear in the background or everybody mowing their lawns. You know, everybody's out and do weed whack and take all the lawns back. You can see the lawn behind me is growing a bit long. Luckily that's not my lawn, so I don't have to cut it. I wouldn't mind cutting it today. It's one of those days where you actually could enjoy. Did I see Keith came in as well there? Byron's in. Dark chocolate mini cheesecakes, Byron. That sounds nice. I could make that this evening for Michelle and I for a little supper, little treat. No bake, with a nice base to it. Hi, I'm Basie from Washington. Jim, how are you? Jim Boucher and Justin. G'day, Keith. So yeah, we're just going to sit out in the garden. I'm just trying to keep up to date with those videos every day in October. I'm quite looking forward to November, to be honest, where we can just slow down. We didn't do this for any other reason than we just wanted to challenge ourselves, sort of like, you know, like a sort of wake yourself up and do something that we don't normally do. And it's been a lot of fun, but it's tiring. Andres, how are you? From Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas.
Janice Davis says hello from Perth, Australia.
Oh, Janice from Perth. We'll be over Perth as we tour around Australia, Janice. I'm really looking forward to getting to Perth. It's one side of us, you know, it's a long way from Melbourne, so Victoria. So we've never been able to get over there. If any of you know, it's probably the equivalent of, I think it's even more than New York to Los Angeles. I think it's quite a bit further. So you don't get out there that often, so we will be there. So I'll get Michelle here. She's going to keep an eye on the chats. I don't drink, you know, I don't drink, but I am going to have a glass of wine. Because it's, what time is it, Michelle?
2:20 in the afternoon.
The sun's over the yard arm. I actually quite often don't have a drink from one month to the next, but I've got a bottle open, so I'm going to enjoy it. Thanks, Andres. That lasagna in a cup was cool. It's a great little meal. Actually, we should have those ingredients in. I'm thinking of doing this with so many series. I shouldn't say this, but we are looking at doing those sort of like easy meals. I did some a little while ago, and I gave a shout out to a wonderful channel, Student Meals, friends of ours in Belgium. and they're a lot of fun. So we might continue that series at a late time. 8:20 p.m. with Keith. Chin chin, everybody. Love to you all. Good health. Michelle and I I'm under the shade here because it's one of those very hot days. You can see there's not a cloud. Is that a cloud there? No, that's probably a fingerprint. See there? You can't see it. It's probably a fingerprint on my computer screen. I don't think there's a cloud in the sky. It's gorgeous. So chin chin, everybody. Good health.
So we've got Lisa Robinson says hi from Georgia. Sean Sims.
Georgia, I love Lisa's in Georgia, is she?
Yep.
It's beautiful, beautiful part of the world. Sorry, you was who?
Sean Simmis.
Sean Simmis, I think, or Simmis. Sean, how are you? Welcome, welcome, Lisa.
Keith Cunningham said Erin's here too. Must be his other half.
Oh, good day, Erin. How are you?
I say hello to Tara and hello to Byron.
You?
Yes, they've said hello to me.
Michelle says hello. She sends her love, and she will pop round and say hello. She's a bit shy. We did you know, I'm always in front of the camera, so I'm happy to make a fool of myself, making dog poo biscuits. And today we've been filming, you know, this is how up against it we are. We probably filmed those dog poop biscuits virtually the day before we
You finished them on the day you edited them.
Yeah, so we finished them and edited them on the same day, so it's a lot of work. And then today's one we made a few errors. You know, okay, I'll talk to you a little bit about modelling chocolate. You know the modelling chocolate I made on my channel last week? A little update for all of you. I used a supermarket home brand and I assumed it was without any cocoa butter in it. Just assumed it was, and actually it did have cocoa butter, so it was quite oily and greasy. So I made another batch up, and I used Michelle, you want to grab those? I use Nestle chocolate melts for the second batch, and the reason I use Nestle is because they're rubbish. It's not a sponsorship. They got nothing natural in them whatsoever. I think they melt really well. They make great modelling chocolate. So I had to make up another batch, and this has all been in the last few days, and I was making some Shrek ears out of modelling chocolate, and with the first batch of modelling it was just too greasy for me. My hands are quite warm. Somebody commented on my hands being fairly chunky. They are warm. I get very warm hands. Michelle gets cold hands. So when I'm working with things, it does tend to melt really quickly, so I need a modelling chocolate that you can work and work and work, and those Nestle bites make great modelling chocolate. The Cadbury's one, hello, is a magpie, I think.
Yeah.
You hear the magpies, they're not the same as the European magpies, they're slightly different. The Australian magpie, I think that's him just flown over the top, probably won't see it because of the lag. They make a lovely, lovely bird call. Do I have a demi-glace recipe? I don't think we've done one yet, Stuart, so something we're talking about this at the moment. We're going to take the channel along this more Steve's Kitchen line, more serious sort of line. Occasionally a little bit of fun, but I am going to look at some more serious dishes and maybe some kitchen techniques as well. Yeah. That's just for the future.
Sean says I make your brown sauce every year.
You do. That brown sauce is great. I first I think we were in France. And we couldn't get any good brown sauce. Now, you Americans will know this as A1 sauce, I think, is it?
So,
we call it brown sauce, and all these sauces originate from sort of fruit sauces, and it's really easy to make and so delicious to make your own. Tara, a great couple, but Michelle and I, very lucky. She is. I'm very lucky. So I can't read those Chinese characters, I'm afraid. Can I? I do read a little bit of Chinese, but I can't. So I love the channel. Keep up the good work and thanks. I've learned how to cook a whole lot of variety of stuff. Thank you. What is the what are the Chinese characters? Obviously your full name, 3 characters there. Anyway, thank you very much. Would love to be able to read it. I did study for a little bit Chinese and I learned some of the characters, so but clearly not that well. A little tiny black ladybug just landed on my keyboard. And it is tiny. You know those little black and yellow? You won't be able to see it. You won't be able to see it. Oh, you can probably. It is tiny. Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. Your house is on fire. Your kids are alone. There's a nursery rhyme goes something like that. So I should listen to Madame Butterfly by Giacomo Puccini. I would. I know Madame Butterfly. I like music. Michelle says I'm always in a better mood when I listen to a lot of music. Not that I'm not always in a good mood anyway, am I?
You're always in a good mood.
I'm always in a good mood. I've got a coffee and a wine, as always. Chin chin.
So the Chinese characters say it says easy games.
Oh, right. That's why there was more than 3 characters. I was usually looking. A lot of my Chinese friends, their names are usually three characters, as is quite common in Chinese. So easy games, cool. Well, if you've got a channel there, Easy Games, people get across and check it out. Easy Games.
So Jan A finally made it in.
Hey Jan, so glad you could make it. I'm going to do these at different times to try and pick up on different parts of the world, because sometimes if you do them at the same time every single week, some people won't be able to get in. I was very surprised the other night when I did it that people did come in from the US, because it was crazy early or crazy late, whichever way you look at it.
It was early. It was about 5, 6 in the morning.
Well, late for some, early for others, depending on what side of it.
It was 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, it did go on for 3 hours, that live talk. Today's won't go on for 3 hours. Well, it might, but I don't think so. I've got editing to do. I've got myself some chips to eat.
And Tika Pika says, "Aye."
Where?
With the pink heart.
Oh, Tika Pika. One of my favourite subscribers. What?
They're all your favourite subscribers.
They are all my favourite subscribers. Everybody, but Tika Pika has been commenting for a long time. As are a lot of you. As are a lot of you.
So Sean says his grandmother used to make the brown sauce, didn't know her recipe, and yours was pretty close.
Yeah. Now, some people say to me that brown sauce, who was it, Sean saying that, should have tamarind in. And the reason I didn't put tamarind in, Sean, and you can use it, you might try it actually, a little bit of tamarind. You can get fresh tamarind seeds and just soak them in a little water, squeeze off the tamarind is like very intense lemon or lime, very citrus. And I would put a tablespoon or 2 of tamarind into the sauce. The reason I didn't use it was because a lot of people, we've travelled a lot around the world. There are places that people have never heard of tamarind and never would be able to get tamarind. Maybe that's becoming less and less so as time develops. So you don't need the tamarind. You could actually put lime in, but you could try it. Hi Stephanie, how are you? Welcome. You've been since 3K subs. Wow. Teacupica, thank you. Now, I always remember you. I always remember some people come on the channel and they comment a lot and then they go off stream for a little while and they come back in. I usually remember the names. I could, you know, now and again some people change their names. That's always a little bit confusing. There's a guy called Ellis the Mechanic who used to comment some time ago. Ellis could even be in today, I'm not sure, but and he changed his name to something completely different, and I still call him Ellis because for about 4 or 5 months that's what I called him. What were we talking about? Tamarind and
brown sauce.
And brown sauce. So if you haven't tried the brown sauce, Michelle, can you pop that in the notes? Get my assistant, my beautiful assistant, to add the notes for brown sauce. Brown sauce is a little bit like A1 sauce, HP sauce, Tutti Frutti sauce, Daddy's sauce. They're all different names, but they all basically come from a dark, rich fruit sauce that's got some vinegar and seasonings in it. Quite often a lot of things like mace and allspice and the likes. It's really good. Now I saw something there was Jim saying, what's your best Kewpie sauce recipe? Jim, I've made Kewpie sauce. Kewpie is fascinating because when I first tried to make, I've got a lot of mayonnaise. Maybe Michelle, in a moment, you could put the mayonnaise and the Kewpie. She's not paid that well, really. She's certainly on minimum wage for doing this for me. I made Kewpie sauce. Now, one of the things by looking at the ingredients and studying how Kewpie sauce is made is that it's made with I forget the oil.
We'll come back to it.
Come back to me. Can it come back to you?
In a minute.
Come back to her. Soy oil.
Yes.
So the soybean oil, it's made with soybean oil. Now the funny thing with soybean oil, it's quite light. It's not very viscous. When you make a mayonnaise with a vegetable oil, it's quite viscous and it emulsifies really easily. But with soybean oil, it doesn't. So you need to put a lot of eggs in, and that's why Kewpie has a high content of egg in the recipe. Now I can't remember the exact recipe. I'll get Michelle to put it up there, but you can make Kewpie sauce. The trick to making Kewpie, though, is you do need to have a fast blender, or those stick blenders work very well, but not the cheap ones. We tried it once with we were staying in a place and they had the cheap blender and it didn't spin fast enough to make mayonnaise. So you do need it doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, you can buy a $20 stick blender from Braun or Breville, Kenwood. They all sell fairly cheap stick blenders and they'll all do the job. But for some reason, the ones that come from Lidl and places like that, they're not very good. The quality is just not good, and they don't spin at the right speed.
I'm putting the mayonnaise up, but it is a very old recipe. We are going to redo it.
Oh yeah, the mayonnaise. Well, we've probably got it in. We've made it so many times.
Yeah.
It's an old recipe. Very sorry. I probably look like I'm 10.
So I missed some comments. Khalid and Mary says hi.
Who was that?
Quite near the top of the page there. Khalid and Mary.
Khalid and Miri?
Just said hi.
I can't see your comment. Michelle's told me you've... Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? So, it is interesting when you want to make... I mean, mayonnaise is the simplest thing to make. If you are not making... Oh, Ruby, Kewpie is... I want to say Japanese,
Japanese,
but I'm not sure. Is it Japanese or is it Korean?
Have a look.
I have my assistant check that. Kewpie is a mayonnaise. It's an Asian mayonnaise, which is kind of nice. I mean, all mayonnaise is...
It's a brand of doll, apparently.
all mayonnaise is... no, there's a similarity in them, but Kewpie is an Asian Japanese mayonnaise. Michelle's just checked for me. It's really nice, and it's made with soya oil rather than vegetable oils, which we tend to use a lot for our mayonnaises. Some people do use olive oil for mayonnaise. It can often make quite an unpleasant flavour if you don't get a very, very light virgin olive oil. And it's so easy to make. If you're not making your own mayonnaise, you should be. I mean, I could make it right here and now if I had the gear. I haven't got a stick mixer. You get a beaker. You add some oil into the beaker, probably somewhere about 250 mils, maybe 300 mils.
Our son makes it, doesn't he?
My boy makes it all the time since we taught him how to. And you just break an egg yolk in. No, the whole egg. No, I don't even separate. See, old way of making mayonnaise, you have to pour it in and emulsify it very slowly. But if you've got a stick mixer, drop the egg in there, a little bit of mustard, a little bit of white vinegar, a little bit of seasoning, salt, pepper. Sometimes you might want to mix it up and put some different flavors in there. So a little bit of mustard, but you can also use mustard powder. Stick your stick mixer in, blitz it up. Absolutely beautiful. Hiya Matt, how are you? Tara said hi to you as well.
Teacup said hi. Fantara.
A teacup has said hi. Everybody's saying, Matt, you're very popular. They're all saying hi. All all the viewers are saying hi to you.
Teacup said, just got back from attempting to make a pumpkin cookie recipe. Since I had some stuff in the kitchen, they were a little bit too cakey, so I took the rest of the batter and made cupcakes.
Pumpkin cookie? Not our pumpkin cookie recipe then, I don't think.
Did we do a pumpkin cookie recipe?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, if you're finding your cookie batter is a little bit too cakey, it depends which flour you're using, and maybe you're underworking the flour, and also generally it means less sugar. Sugar will tend to take that batter back to being quite crisp, and if it's a little bit too little sugar, or you've used sugar substitutes in there, you have to work it more or use different flours to make it that bit stronger. It's always a bit tricky in this. You can always just make them into a cupcake. Yeah, if you have cooking questions, by the way, fire away. Okay. Both Michelle and I are chefs, so we haven't worked in kitchens for a long time. But
Sean says, have you ever tried your Nutella recipe with Brazilian nut?
No, because Brazils are really hard to get now in Australia. I reckon it would work well. Wasn't there a bit of a scare with Brazils? You know, I get tired of these scares. When a government tell you you're not allowed to eat Brazils, I want to go out and buy sacks of them and start stuffing them in my face, because generally it's all nonsense. So no, Brazils are hard to get, but I suspect it would make a good... You'd probably need to blanch them, just take the skins off. Did you try it, by the way? Have you tried it with Brazils? Cost a fortune here, but if you want to buy Brazils, you'd have like the most expensive nut butter, anything about $4 a Brazil nut.
If you can get them.
If you can get them. I haven't seen them in the shops. About Christmas time we might see some little packets of Brazils coming in, but they're hard to find now. And when we were kids, they were all over the place.
Wanderer of the Desert said your Cajun chicken wraps were the bomb.
Oh yeah, they were good, weren't they? I still make those, the Cajun chicken wraps. We bought Cajun seasoning, a couple of bottles of Cajun seasoning when we were in Malaysia, and it was from a little supermarket. You know the Twin Towers, the famous Petronas Towers in Malaysia? Just below that there's a really nice supermarket. We bought some simple Cajun seasoning. It was really nice. I have to dissect it and have a look at it. We're getting a little bit low on it. It has lasted really well.
So, Wanderer of the Desert, who said about the Cajun wraps, has got to go, so he says bye.
Bye-bye.
Tikapika said you did my Okonomiyaki request and used the Kewpie on top.
That's right, Okonomiyaki. All that time ago, Tikapika. All that time ago. Okonomiyaki. And we were going to do a lot more. We still got to do that. The Japanese foods.
It's on our to-do list.
Yeah. Okonomiyaki is great, by the way. But to me, Okonomiyaki... Okay, I should not just bang on and not explain to people. It is a dish, a Japanese dish. It's often prepared in front of you. So it's made on a big skillet, and they'll sort of cut up the Okonomiyaki. I'm trying to think what goes into it now.
Cabbage and...
Yeah, it's a sort of cabbage, like a bubble and squeak, we would call it, wouldn't it?
My dad, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Michelle's father is not hasn't got the widest of palates, but he actually quite enjoyed Okonomiyaki.
You just gave it a different name for him.
Well, I think we called it bubble and squeak. It's great, fantastic. But I think the most beautiful thing about Okonomiyaki is actually having it made for you. You know, when you actually just make it up yourself. And what was that sauce we had to go out and buy specifically for the Okonomiyaki sauce? It's a brown sauce, and we had to go out and buy that. It was, I suspect we could make it.
We probably could. Stephanie Bryant said, my work has a Halloween potluck next week. I think I'm going to make spider chocolate chip cookies inspired by one of your videos.
Good choice. Good choice. What was the second one?
No. Spider chocolate chip cookies.
Okay. What about my poop cookies, Stephanie? Don't make those. One of the ladies on the comments said she was going to make them for a child to take into school. And I thought, oh, way to get your kid expelled from school, he comes in with a big pile of poop cookies for all the other kids. And then Michelle said to me, well, he might not be a little one. He might be like 18 and at university, 19 at university. I never thought about that, of course. And then it would just be hilarious.
So Matt Hoffman just got off work, and I've learned a lot from your channel.
Hey Matt, glad you finished work, mate. Kick back, enjoy yourself, relax. Where's Matt? Do we know where Matt is?
No. Where are you from, Matt? Where are you?
I'm wondering if you're in Oz.
Teacup Pika used an alternative sugar for half of it. That's a cane extract mixed with stevia, so that was probably why it didn't work.
Okay. Yes, it would be, because the cane extract might be okay. The stevia doesn't crystallize that well, so you don't get teacup Pika. You don't really get. It's always a problem making good cookies with sugar alternatives. You've got to pick and choose what you use, and they do end up being almost the. If you're trying to make a gluten-free cookie with a sugar alternative like a stevia, you really are going to end up with just shortbreads. It's very hard to get them to be crisp like a good cookie. And I'm trying to think what would be the best. I mean, honey does tend to caramelize quite well, but then if you're trying to avoid honey sugars, you might also be trying to avoid honey.
So Stephanie said she's just done a new job and doesn't want to scare her co-workers so soon.
No, new job. Maybe you should make some cinnamon graham crackers. keep it simple to start with. Actually, no. If you're doing a new job, go and make some chocolate hobnobs.
That's not Halloween.
No, but it's kind of it.
Put a spider on the top.
Oh, for Halloween, of course, yes. So no, I'll make some chocolate hobnobs anyway. I've got the recipe as well. You know, if you want to endear yourself to everybody, did we actually coat the hobnobs in chocolate? We did, I think. Yeah.
Of course.
We coat everything in chocolate. Best way. Hobnobs are an English biscuit cookie for my American friends, which are a little bit like a digestive, not that much like a graham cracker. They're really roughage based, and everybody loves hobnobs. They're just, you can't stop eating the things. And then about X number of years after hobnobs had been super famous, they decided to make chocolate hobnobs. So they just, like every English cookie, every Australian cookie, eventually they're going to cover them in chocolate. So on goes the chocolate. Now everybody loves chocolate hobnobs. So yeah, digestives are great, hobnobs are great, but if they've got chocolate on them, times two. I keep doing this. No, I did it earlier, and I noticed
So Sean says that you can get Brazil nuts quite easily in Canada. You can still buy them by the bag. So I'll get some and try it.
Well, you're lucky, because I think Brazil nuts are one of my favourite nuts. Macadamias are probably a similar nut that we have here in Australia. They have a similar texture, don't they? Yeah. But I do like Brazils. I think it's because when we were a kid, they really remind me of Christmas. Brazil nuts and the hazelnuts in the shells. You used to get those at Christmas time. Nobody could open them. Yeah. Oh no, what's the one nobody can open? It's a Brazil, isn't it? Brazil.
They were always left in the bowl because nobody could get them open.
You know, you used to get the Brazil nuts because you have a big bowl of nuts, and everybody went for the Brazils because they're the best nuts. You got your nutcracker, trying to open the Brazil nut, it won't open. And even when you get half the shell off and the Brazil nut's sort of like staring out at you, know, he's sort of there, he's just like staring out at the nut like this, you can't get the damn thing out. Like hair on a biscuit, as my mate Dave would say, clinging on like, or even Raggy would probably say that as well, like hair on a biscuit. You can't get those nuts out of the shell. So towards the end of Christmas, although they were the favourite nuts, they were always the ones that nobody could bother to attempt, because you'd put them on the floor eventually and sort of put your boot down onto them, and then you just have like Brazil nut paste amongst lots of little bits of Brazil nut, sure. Which are, it's almost as if somebody's like filed off the edge of the table onto your nut butter, and you try to eat it and it's sticking in your teeth. So with that little anecdote out the way,
Keith says, chef's opinion. My daughter is a chef. She worked in Alice Springs for a bit. She doesn't like blue cheese. Should she have her trade certificate revoked?
Yes, she should have. She should be looked into, for sure. Because look, when you're younger, who said that, Keith?
Yes, Keith.
No, Keith. She should certainly be marched off the gangplank into a larger vat of bouillon. No, look, blue cheese is an acquired taste, and I think as you get old, well, you know, my kids ate blue cheese from a young age. We used to give it to them really young, so they all like blue cheese. But if you haven't had blue cheese as a child, it really hits, doesn't it? It's a very strong cheese, very sort of tinny, sort of acidic flavours that you're going to get, and some cheeses even more so than others. So no, I forgive her. She'll learn to love it. Maybe Keith, you could do it the old-fashioned way. My mother always talks about you know, you hollow the Stilton, get a Stilton wheel, hollow it out, pour the port wine into it, let it sort of like soak into the cheese, and then you just sort of help yourself. You get a spoon of it out, put it on some nice what are those Scottish oat cakes. Go well with oat cakes.
Nice bit of bread.
Or a nice bit of crusty bread. Some grissini. Oh, man, all I've got is these poop kick cookies. And see, Keith, look what I've got to have, man.
And no blue cheese. You have to have some cheese.
I've got a bit of cheese. I can have a poop cookie, which are really nice, actually.
Teacupper said she was thinking of using honey but was low, so she'll try it though. And she said you should make some pumpkin cookies, especially ones that are crumbly and cracked. Charlie?
Oh, Charlie's heard someone going past. See him off, Charlie.
So pumpkin cookies, especially ones that crumbly and cracked, that would be amazing. Charlie.
Come here, Charlie.
She's gone.
See him off, boy. Oh, hearty soups. I just saw somebody, Nerdy Geeky Hops. Nerdy Geeky Hops. Now, talking of hops, Nerdy Geeky, if you don't mind me sort of like sidetracking a little bit, I don't know if any of you check out a Canadian guy called Craig Tube. And Craig has been on since I can ever remember. I think I was about 4 years old when Craig started on YouTube. But the guy has been on YouTube forever, and he's got a fantastic channel. And I was actually surprised that he's still going, to be honest. I noticed, so you can always check him out. Why I say about that is because he's talking about hops the other day, and he's a lot of fun. He's actually he suffers. No, he doesn't suffer. That's not the right word. He's albino, so he has a lot of problems with his eyes. But what a lovely guy! What an absolutely lovely guy, and he's really what YouTube's all about. So get and check him out, CraigTube, and he does beer reviews, beer brewing. He's been doing it for a long time. So just seeing your name Hops on there. Where was your question?
Well, just quickly, Sean's going
oh, Sean.
to bed.
Good night, Sean.
Because Ruby Slippers says, for anyone, what cold weather food do you enjoy? So that's why Nerdy Geeky Hops said hearty soups.
Okay.
Cold season.
Yes, I think a really good country vegetable soup. And I say country vegetable soup, I mean a soup that's got all its, it's got all the root vegetables in there. It's a nice thick soup with lots of texture in it. Or leek and potato soup. Soups like that go really well. What do you like? Pumpkin soup, yeah. Pumpkin soup is great, and you can do pumpkin soup with things like cauliflower, pumpkin and cauliflower soup. Keep some of the florets whole in there, give it some texture. You can add a little bit of ham into it, which goes quite nice. So you're kind of playing on a pea and ham soup, but doing it with pumpkin. Because peas are quite sweet, pumpkin's quite sweet. They work quite well together. Absolutely delicious. It's actually not the time of year for us, you can see, for those sort of hearty soups that you're talking about. I'm not thinking of hearty soups at the moment. I'm thinking of sort of nice light salads. Good night, Sean. Take care.
Matt Hoffman says, I'm from the USA in Indiana, a machinist who always wanted to be a chef, but I love machines.
There are lots of machines in a kitchen. Is it Matt?
Yes.
Lots of machines in the kitchen, Matt, that you can pull apart and play with to your heart's content. I wish I had all my... Any cake for Paddington Bear too? Hey Dax, how are you? We are enjoying every bit of it, Dax. Is Paddington Bear 2 coming out?
I knew you'd say that.
You know, I don't. I'm so behind the times. You know, when I made Dax, you can't put pictures in here, can you?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think you can. I made the Paddington Bear cake. I'll get Michelle to put a link to it. And I was really proud of that cake. It was for the Paddington Bear movie. I probably was a little bit slow off the mark because it was virtually...
we were good for that one.
No, but it was still not. It wasn't a month ahead. It might have been a week ahead. But so I made this Paddington Bear, all sculpted, sat on top of a Paddington suitcase, and I made a little label for hanging off the front of the suitcase and put his initials on there. And I was really put the hat on top. And Michelle's got one of those vintage Paddington Bears that are worth probably $50 now. Probably cost $50 to buy. I was really proud of it, and it really didn't get views, did it?
No.
It took an absolute age to make. I mean, it probably cost a fortune just in fondant and what have you, but it took ages. So if Paddington Bear 2 is coming out, no, I'm not doing Paddington Bear Cake 2 because nobody watched Paddington Bear Cake 1.
And we had to find him a home.
And because I did it, it was random. I love Paddington. I mean, I've always been a massive Paddington fan, sadly, because he's such a cool bear. And that's why I made it. It wasn't because because quite often stuff comes out and I barely know the movies have come out. But Paddington took my eye, and I made that thing. Now there was no birthdays, was there? There was no. So I'm sat there. I've got this huge Paddington Bear cake, sat on a suitcase. He's got his hat on. He's got his Wellington boots on. All his little furry face. It was really cool, and. I had no one to give it to, and I didn't want to just eat it. Rupert the Bear, yeah, I do love Rupert the Bear too. Gosh, they were showing our sort of age of interest. I didn't want to just eat it. I just felt it should be. So my daughter was going to a 21st birthday party, and I said to her, "Just take this Paddington Bear cake," and the guys loved it. It's hard sometimes if we make things. Michelle and I are not going to sit and eat a Paddington Bear cake, and I'm not going to force it on to just my kids to eat this whole thing. So we have to find a home for it. Rupert the Bear. Everyone knows his name.
So true. So Matt says you can cook in the pumpkin in itself.
That's a good idea. How would you cook in the pumpkin though? I mean, I've done it because I've done it with Thai cooking. Sankia Faktong. Got to be careful how you say it, but that is a Thai custard pumpkin. But you do have to be careful even with that when you're cooking inside a pumpkin or any gourd like that. They do have a tendency just to break open because as they get soft, they'll split. You can just flick the side of them; they'll just split. So you've got to be careful. They're not like baking in a cob loaf or something like that, where the longer you bake, the more likely it's to get hard. The longer you bake, the more likely it is just to sort of turn to a pile of mush. So yes, you can, but be careful.
Now Dax asks, what's a good age to start feeding kids chilies?
Is it Zach's asking?
Dax. Dax.
Oh, Dax. Good. Look, a lot of my Indian friends, Sri Lankan friends, Asian friends, they're giving chilies to their kids from birth or from their first food. I mean, it's early on in their diet.
Our oldest loved curry, didn't he?
I mean, my kids love curry from a very, very young age. I don't think you should give kids something that we would find hot. But I think you can introduce spicy foods into a diet. I think the earlier the better, but don't quote me on this, Dax, because people are very opinionated about the way they feed their kids. All I do know is that I've lived in all different parts of Asia, and I've seen kids on Chillies from virtually the first meal or first solids, and it never does them any harm. They certainly, but then you see, you've got to be careful if you don't eat a lot. Yes, they are. You've got to be careful if you don't eat a lot of that sort of stuff in your diet anyway. Then you just don't want to shock the system with Chillies one day. They're eating a little rice pudding, and then vindaloo. It's not gonna.
Yeah, and if mum's had it during pregnancy, then they're used to it anyway. So.
You think so?
Yeah, I think that affects what they like.
Well, Michelle is just saying, if you can't hear there, if you're eating that sort of food during your pregnancy, then it's likely that the system will be used to it anyway. I don't know, but if you're eating that sort of food regularly, you're likely to introduce your kids to it at a young age. Jim Boucher says, I just want to roast chestnuts this holiday. Any suggestions? Well, you can roast chestnuts, Jim. How do you mean suggestions for how to roast chestnuts? Probably that's what you mean. Roasting chestnuts, a good way to roast chestnuts is outdoors. Don't do them indoors. You can actually just do them on a tray indoors. We used to do them in the tray. But if you can do them outdoors, you can actually get, those little lava rocks that you get often with barbecues. If you get yourself a wok and some lava rocks, and you heat it up, or sand, it works with sand, and you can put your chestnuts into that when it gets hot. Good night, Dax. You can put those into and cook them. They'll cook in the hot stones or the hot sand, and then you can add a little bit of sugar in with it, so you get that beautiful roast chestnut. Because if you ever see it out on the streets, I used to in Hong Kong. Many years ago, there used to be an old fellow that used to roast chestnuts just down the road from where I was, and the smell, I say just down the road, it would come from miles. Roasting chestnut smells so good. So do it outside, or if you want to do it, if you haven't got somewhere outside where you can heat up a wok, and it doesn't have to be those lava stones, so you can actually use sand. Score the chestnuts. Just score the chestnuts a little bit with a sharp knife so they don't bang and pop open, and then you can just use a metal, like a wok spoon, and just keep flicking them round, and they're cooking. They're actually touching the sand, the hot sand, and that's the way I would cook them if I was wanted the most authentic roasted chestnut. And wait until they've really gone that dark, nutty brown before you take them out, and they'll be cooked perfectly. And everybody around you, your neighbours, everyone within a 100-mile radius will be knocking at your door trying to get chestnuts off you because they smell so good. Now, if you can't do that, you can actually just score them and put them in an oven. I would say probably about 160, 180, so 320 Fahrenheit. What is 160? 160C to about 180C. Which I think is around about sort of 350, 360. Michelle will check it for me on a flat roasting tray and just roast them in the
160 is 320.
Oven. 160 is 320. Somewhere between 320, 350.
And Jan says they smell awful when they're roasting. They don't.
No, they don't smell awful when they're roasting. Well, maybe they do to you, Jan. The reason. They always, in a lot of countries where they roast chestnuts on a regular basis, they roast them out on the streets. They add sugar into the roast, and the combination of that sort of roasting chestnut and caramelized sugar is just to die for. I mean, you'll never hear anybody I've never heard anybody that doesn't love the smell of roasting chestnuts. Sorry, Jan. Maybe the way we roast them could convert you.
She actually says, I heard they smell awful.
Oh, no, they don't smell awful. They smell like you've just driven past a fudge factory or something, and there's just that beautiful, beautiful smell. JJJ, shout out from Japan. Oh, we've got a few people in from Japan, I think.
So Lynn Harmon's question, how do you keep white meat moist? I heard about injection. What do you think?
Oh, Lynn, you just made me cringe. Oh, white meat, no, don't inject. Don't inject. There's so many ways to keep white meat moist. Generally, white meat, it depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about turkey or you're talking about pork, which generally people are talking about, then it's really, if it's getting too dry, you're probably overcooking it. I mean, that's the biggest fear we have in the Western world now is, oh, we got to cook pork to within an inch of its life, and of course it comes out and you take a bite of it and it sucks all the moisture out of your mouth like eating sand. And that's generally JJ, we will do Japanese food. I'm going to do a whole Japanese series at some point. I want to come to Japan. Maybe at the end of the Australian tour we'll come over there. So generally it's overcooking. It's the same with turkey. It's the same with pork. It's overcooked. I haven't got the figures in my head of temperatures and cooking rates for pork, but I mean, there are many things you can do to keep a bird moist. If you're doing chicken, we used to boil them, didn't we?
Particularly if you're barbecuing it, you boil the chicken drumsticks first and then you're just browning the outside.
Now, a lot of people are into sous videing, which is great. I mean, sous videing's great, but we haven't all got time to sous vide. But to boil meat before you roast it's a good way, because then all you're doing is adding colour. So if you wanted to, you take a chicken and you boil it, you cook it in water, and you can add a few onions in there and a little bit of seasoning and maybe some fresh herbs, dried herbs even. And then when it's cooked, and I haven't got the times and things, you need to check that out. You then take it out and roast it, but you just roast it on a high oven so you get a nice crisp outside. When you cut that bird open, it is going to be so moist. It's going to be absolutely delicious. And you can actually do that with pork. You can do it with beef. You can do it with almost anything. Well, if you think about boiled beef and carrots or hams are often done that way as well. So Matt Hoffman, sushi. Yes, we did sushi rice, rolled sushi. We've done a few Japanese dishes, and so JJ, there are quite a few on there. We were just saying about okonomiyaki, onigiri. Onigiri's fun, lovely dish. So there are quite a few Japanese dishes out there. Have we got a playlist of Japanese, Michelle?
I think we have, yeah.
JJ will send you a link to a playlist of Japanese recipes, and you can have a look. But I would love to do more, and I want to come to Japan. Turkey, Lynn, is another thing you can do. You can actually boil the turkey if you've got a pan big enough. The other thing, a lot of people tend to, generally it's overcooking that's going to dry it out. A good thing to do with turkey, Lynn, is to spatchcock the turkey. Have I done a video on how to spatchcock a turkey?
You were going to.
Okay, I haven't done a spatchcock bird. I should do. It's basically you flatten the bird out. So you break, you cut the bird in such a way that you can flatten it. Now, by getting rid of that big cavity inside the bird, and actually stuffing can help cook a bird, you get a much quicker roast of a turkey. Now the problem is most of us want that big, beautiful, sort of puffy turkey, but if you spatchcock it, trust me, it'll be. So Michelle's just brought up the Japanese playlist.
Quick good night to Jan.
Good night, Jan.
It's late.
Wasn't it Jan asking me about the... No, it was...
Lynn asking about the turkey.
Oh, it's Lynn. So...
Jan was about the chestnuts roasting.
No worries. You're welcome. So spatchcocking, that's a way of keeping your birds fresh. Particularly, actually, chicken, you should spatchcock every time. And when I say spatchcock, you'll see it done in chicken roasting houses, where you see them roasting the chicken, where they flatten the bird out. And that's how they keep their bird moist. It also cuts the cooking time by probably about a third of the cooking time. Because chicken itself and turkey Doesn't take that long to cook, but of course if you put a big bird, a big cavernous bird in the oven, it's going to take a long time for the heat to work its way right into the meat and in the inside and cook it all the way through, by which time the whole thing's dry as something I shouldn't say, but it's dry. So now a way around that is to trap in the moisture by boiling a bird or boiling a joint. So I hope that answers your question to a degree, and I will try and look at that. Maybe this year we could do a spatchcock bird.
Yeah, you said you wanted
Might not do a turkey, we might do a smaller bird so you can get the idea. You have a question.
Ruby Slippers made some of your sushi and loved it.
Thanks, Ruby. Is there any other questions I missed there, Michelle?
No, but JJJ, your hummus recipe didn't use cumin. Why?
Because I don't put cumin in hummus. Some people put all sorts of things in their hummus. Sometimes they put paprika. Sometimes they put not cumin, but
Cardamom?
No, the licorice seeds.
Oh, anise and fennel.
Fennel. Sometimes they put in fennel if they want. Now these are all personal tastes. If you put cumin into your hummus, you're assuming that everybody wants it with the strong flavour that that cumin gives, which I like, by the way, but it doesn't have to go in there by any means. So that's why. And somebody said that to me on YouTube. A hummus. The recent recipe we did on hummus was meant to also be a simple recipe. I wasn't really trying to make hummus the way I tend to make it at home by actually using, because if I'm making hummus on a regular basis, I actually buy dried chickpeas and rehydrate them. I take time to make it. Yeah, fennel's fine in hummus. Anything's good in hummus. Look, I made a guacamole the other day with pumpkin in it. Now, pumpkin is not something that you put into guacamole, but I can tell you this, it was delicious, and it didn't make much difference to the flavour, because the texture of slightly blanched pumpkin is very similar to that of guacamole. Now, a pumpkin is about $1.50 a kilo, and at the moment avocados in Australia are about $15 a kilo. So think about it, do the maths. If you can produce something that looks as good and tastes as good for a fraction of the cost, why not? It's a good way of if you've got a family, you're bringing up a family, you're trying to do things, you want good homemade wholesome food all the time, which is what we all want for our families, then why not?
So Keith says seasoned butter under the skin of turkey.
Yeah, seasoned butter will work, Keith. It imparts some flavour onto it. I mean, we've always done that, butterball turkeys. It doesn't stop a bird from drying out, though. You can put 5 kilos of butter under the skin of the bird. If you overcook it, it's going to be laying in a tray full of butter and dry as a bone. It imparts a flavour. I'm not entirely convinced that butter actually under the skin of a turkey really made much difference to the final product. I think there was a guy in the UK called who was the turkey guy?
Oh yes,
Bernard Matthews.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, I think he made famous the sort of butterball turkeys. I'm not convinced. It helps and it imparts extra flavour, and it's a good way of carrying flavour in. I would probably actually rather put it into put those same flavours into duck fat, because that's going to at least then drip down into the tray, and if you cook your roasts and things around that, you're going to get delicious flavour from it. Whereas with the butter, if it drips down into the tray and it burns, it can actually get quite sour. Having said that, I've done it many times, many times. I put butter underneath the skin of a turkey, but a spatchcock turkey would be even better. Just my opinion. Can you make chickpea fritters from hummus? Can't see what. I've not actually made chickpea fritters.
Wet.
Hmm?
As long as it's not too wet.
Yeah, as long as it's not too wet. You know, with any fritter, you don't want the content to be too wet. And as a rule, Gulab Jamun. How come that picture from Katorga suddenly went from clear to not clear?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's just on my side. Hi Steve, I've just joined your stream. I made your Gulab Jamun for the 10th time on 20 people. Absolute knockout. Oh, I love Gulab Jamun. In Trinidad. Wow. Well, welcome to the live stream. I thought this was going to be a short one, but I'm quite enjoying chatting with you all. I do have to do some editing. Gulab Jamun. If make me started. I love Gulab Jamun. Rasgulla. I love Indian desserts. They're just packed full of flavour. I love those flavours of those sort of floral flavours of cardamom and rose water and all that sort of stuff going into a dessert. So if ever I'm asked what is my favourite dessert, I'll probably struggle, but Gulab Jamun's probably up there. And my one of my aunties used to make Gulab Jamun a lot many years ago. She's passed away now, sadly. She used to make fantastic Gulab Jamun, and the pronunciation can get debated whether or not I'm saying it right, but they're from an Indian background, so they only served it the traditional way, but I like it with ice cream, so I used to heat up the Gulab Jamun with vanilla ice cream, and she'd always get the vanilla ice cream for me and put it with the Gulab Jamun. So good. Try it. Hot Gulab Jamun, a little bit of the best quality vanilla ice cream you can do. The stream is good, Keith, is it?
No. Kato said, originally she said, joined your love stream and changed it to live stream, and Keith's saying love stream is good.
It is. Share the love stream, Keith. I wouldn't have read that, Keith. I'm sure my dyslexia would get in the way. I'd have just read that as a live stream. Chin chin, cheers.
So Lynn Harmon wants your thoughts on brining.
That's a very broad question. Brining what? Who asked that?
Lynn.
Lynn. Brining what? Because you can brine sauerkraut, you can brine meats, you can brine pickles. Can you just tell me what? Maybe make it a bit more specific, and I'll try and deal with that.
Okay. JJJ says, do you have soft, fluffy flour tortilla recipe?
Yes, we do. We have soft, fluffy flour. I'm going to be doing my tortillas with masa flour, so proper Mexican flour, and man, they are so good. If you can get hold of it, they are going to be second to none. Even if I do say so myself, because I learnt from great Mexican cooks. From wonderful Mexican cooks when we were in Mexico. You know, you learn so much. If I was going to do, you see, before I left traveling and I went to Mexico, if I'd have done a flour tortilla, I'd have done it the way I've always done it, with with wheat flour and blah 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 blah, which is simple and it's easy to make. But now I've been there and I've had the best, I want to share with you the best, and I'm going to try and make that as simple as possible, because it's all about trying to encourage people to cook, not make it too frightening. But soft, fluffy, soft flour tortillas. Yes, JJ.
And Lynn was talking about meat brining.
Meat brining. I love meat brining. I mean, for me, a brined meat, whether it's a wet brine or a dry brine, particularly, I mean, we have brined our meats for decades, Michelle and I. We've kept our own pigs and for the table, and brining meats adds a whole new dimension. I mean, to say brining meats, to clarify that for everybody out there that's not quite sure, I mean, every piece of ham or bacon you have, pastrami, anything you have is a brined meat. So I love brine meats. I particularly love a Christmas ham, done with good quality pork. If you can find a butcher that can get you pork that's from a it's got good provenance. It's maybe an older breed of pork rather than the long white, which is common. But if you can get good pork and you can brine a ham, which is to basically soak the ham in seawater or salt water. I say seawater because in the Mediterranean years ago they used to actually, well, they still do, parts of Italy, Croatia, Greece, they will actually brine the meat in seawater. And in some parts of the world, particularly I think on the Adriatic, don't quote me on this, this is not Listen with Stephen time, this is just me rambling my thoughts off. Some parts of the, I think in the Adriatic, there was a natural occurrence of saltpeter, which is a rock formation, and that was where they learnt that adding, having a saltpeter content or potassium, potassium nitrite, if it's in water, made the brined meats come out a lot pinker. So it kept they kept that pink flavour, and that's where they surreptitiously stumbled across the idea of adding saltpeter, which is a perfectly naturally occurring rock formation. Because in the caves on part of the, I'm going to call it the Adriatic, it might have been the Mediterranean. In a lot of the caves they have saltpeter or potassium sulfate in the actual rocks, and it was so much so that it was in the seawater, and that's where they discovered by chance. Some people discovered it. I'm sure it's been discovered all over the world in different places. So I'm keen on brining. I've actually got a video. They're not that great, but they're a few years old now, of making a brined ham, a Christmas ham. So maybe Michelle can pop that up for you if you haven't seen it already. Have you got any specific questions about brining that you want me to answer? Because I've written a lot about brining over the years. We wrote a book some time ago. It's not actually in production anymore, so I can't tell you about it. But we used to, when we lived in France, we used to do a lot of teaching for charcuterie and how to make different brined meats. Bye bye, JJ. You make me sound like I've got a stutter. The bars. 2Z. Side dishes. Well, what sort of side dishes? I mean, we've probably got quite a lot of dishes on the recipe. We've got 700 and odd recipes already. Probably going to find that there's quite a few that would come under side dishes, but I don't think I've got a specifically side dishes recipe playlist. The bars, have a look through the channel, and if you have particular dishes you're interested in, you can always let me know. I don't have a lot of time for doing one-off dishes, but I might be able to incorporate it into a series in the future.
So Matt says he would love to see some Egyptian dishes.
Poultry. Sorry, who said? Matt?
Matt would love to see some Egyptian dishes.
Okay. We were thinking of doing an Egyptian series some years back. I'm trying to think what it was we were.
I can't remember.
Matt, that it will come. Be patient. Over time, every single country and region in the world will be covered. I'm pretty sure. Time permitting. So stop brining after a coon pulled off a leg off my Thanksgiving. What's that mean, Ruby? Not sure I understand that. Mainly poultry. Brining of poultry?
We've done a lot.
Now, I don't know about brining poultry so much. I mean, you can brine turkeys, you can brine pretty much any poultry, but it's not something I tend to brine. So that homemade ham recipe that Michelle's put up, I think it's in 2 or 3 parts, isn't it?
That's part 1 I put up.
Okay, that's part 1 because we did it on the run up to Christmas. So I was actually making it as we were going along. So you have to follow it step by step because it takes time.
We actually filmed it on Christmas Day. I think we had to wait for our dinner.
We did. We actually were the final one. I think we filmed on Christmas Day, and all the kids are sat around waiting for this ham. And I said, "Got to film it first. Got to film it first." Crazy. It's a crazy world we live in. How can a raccoon pull off the leg of a Thanksgiving turkey? So, now I know in the US it's quite common to brine turkeys as well, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, I've never brined a turkey, but that would be a good way of keeping some of that moisture in. By the way, brining can do that.
Ruby said I had a bucket brining outside. In the morning, my turkey had only 1 leg. I think it was a raccoon.
Man, Ruby, that's a funny story. Well, what can I say? Here's a little tip for those of you that are thinking of brining. I would suggest don't put it in a bucket outside your back door. Because from what Ruby tells me, there's every chance some wild critter is going to come up and start gnawing, and rightfully so. So Ruby, you deserve what you've got there. I hope you didn't put it to waste, mind you.
So Ruby also asked earlier on, if you do start Mexican, I need another tamale recipe, please.
Tamale.
We are doing a Mexican.
We are doing tamale. Tamales. Anyone from Mexico watching?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do, I wanted to get so much done for this Halloween actually, and we decided not to because we were going to do a skull of Katrina. I'm going to have to do it next year because we just haven't got the time, sadly. But I wanted to do some chilies en nogada, which is popular this time of year in Mexico, but it's the wrong time, so we'll see. Any other questions there, Michelle, that I'm missing?
So I just got to catch up. I was getting links.
Yeah, gorgeous day. Look at that sky. Someone was in from Hawaii the other day, so I put my Hawaiian shirt on
Tammy did
today.
Yo-Yo Max.
Hey, Yo-Yo. Tammy. Yo-Yo Max, how are you? Hi, Tammy. Look at this gorgeous day. Aren't you jealous? Look how beautiful it is. Mind it may be beautiful up where you are as well. This is just a little... Tammy, I decided to do a video every day in October just for punishment. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been quite tiring. And so today's live show is just to sort of plug the Saturday because I haven't got my edit done. You just got back from Hawaii, so how cool. Well, you are lucky. Where did you go? To the Big Island? Hawaii's gorgeous. If any of you haven't been to Hawaii, you should certainly go there. So now, what was it Ruby was saying?
She put a big rock on top of the bucket, and the raccoon must have been bigger.
I love that story, Ruby. I shall remember that one for many years to come. So you put a bucket outside with your turkey brining in the thing, and the raccoon managed to get the rock off. I think you might have had a bear rather than a raccoon. Tammy, you've missed. Don't worry about this month. There's been I put if there's 31 days in the month, so I put 31 videos up.
Up to 28.
28 we put up so far. We've got one to do tomorrow. Do you want to get my ears? And yeah, it wasn't really meant for everybody to watch the Big Island. Yeah, lovely. Waikiki. We took our kids there, Tammy, quite a few years back now, and stayed on the Big Island. Michelle actually has got family over there, so I loved Hawaii. I've been making
Probably soft, no, right?
these Shrek ears. Look at this. And okay, clue to what we're to. Oh, I can't do it that way. Now I'm not going to touch my ears because they are chocolate, and no doubt I'll be eating them later on. But I made these Shrek ears for a recipe tomorrow, and we've literally just been finishing filming that today, and it should be up this evening, but it's not. It's going to go up tomorrow evening. That's why I'm doing the live show today. Now, a lot of you will know Tammy from Yo-Yo Max 12. If you haven't already subscribed to Tammy's channel, you should be. She's just wonderful. Heaps of fun. Gotta say that one of the most inspirational channels for being just really fun and friendly. Great channel. So, have we missed any other comments there? Oh, Tammy says hi, Michelle.
Oh, hi, Tammy. She's asking where you are.
Oh, we are in. Hear that? That is a an Australian magpie. We're in Melbourne, Australia, up in the Mornington Peninsula, and it's gorgeous. We're just getting into the summer.
The moon's just above your head.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's not. Your hat's covering it.
So yeah, we're in back in Melbourne. We're going to be in Melbourne City next over the next month. I'm hoping to be close enough that I can meet up with some Mexican suppliers so we can do our Mexican series whilst we actually can get access to Mexican produce, particularly to some of the moles and flowers and things. So that'll be quite. We're hopefully going to spend a whole month somewhere in the city in Melbourne. So.
I think we're up to date with the...
So we're up to date.
Yeah,
so I've got to sit and have myself a swig of glass. Anybody want to ask any questions while I'm here? Michelle, you want to come around and say hello to everybody?
Come say hello.
Come say hello. And you're a nice pink canary.
Put my pink canary on. The wind's getting up. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, Tammy's heaps of fun. I'll put a link. I'm pretty sure everybody knows Tammy's channel, but pop a link in there if you would. And if you haven't, if you've been under a rock and you haven't checked out Tammy, get across and check it. Hard work, this YouTube sometimes, isn't it, Tammy, trying to make a living out of it. Let's not go down that route. It's a lot of fun, though, isn't it? Heaps of fun. Hi, Lynn. How are you? Now, I'm going to go a little bit longer if some questions come in. Christian Fowler, how did I learn to cook? Now, I've been asked this a lot, Christian, but I don't mind. I've been cooking since I was very young. And we talked about this in the last live show where the schools when I was younger used to be, they used to have a lot of these home economics, we used to call it at the time. I don't know if you guys called it home economics, but they were basically cooking classes. And they were a lot of fun. I loved them. I just took to that sort of thing. Anything creative, working with my hands, I've always enjoyed it. And I think one of the problems I had is I possibly was academic. So every time the teachers used to tell me to go and do academic stuff, I still went towards sort of hands-on things. So I've been cooking since I was very young. Michelle is a chef, worked for many years in the kitchens, and we've both taught and cooked for many years. So. And YouTube just seemed a natural progression to us because because I'm an exhibitionist and Michelle is not. Hence, I'll wear anything for a laugh. A bit like Tammy, we like gregarious and loud sort of things. Is that right, Tammy? Maybe. Well, I do anyway. I'm particularly that way inclined, I suppose. Tammy, you didn't miss a whole lot. You certainly didn't miss the poop cookies, which were yesterday's video. I shouldn't bother checking that one out. Any advice for a young cook? I would like to be as good as me one day. Well, you could probably be as good as me quite quickly by just being passionate about food. Okay, for a young cook, I don't know how young, Christian. If you really do love your food, Embrace all sorts of food and all sorts of food culture. Don't be too narrow. Try all sorts of things. Develop your palate, and be passionate, and share things you cook with your friends and family all the time, because that way your passion will shine through. And if you really want to work in the industry, be careful. It's a tough industry to work in. It's a lot of work. When you start off in the cooking industry, it quite often can be just a lot of hard work. So find a niche that you enjoy. Try and find something. A lot of my friends have gone into working as line chefs, and that can be quite soul destroying, doing the same thing over and over again. So try and find an industry that challenges you, or start your own little business, or get on YouTube and do something if you enjoy. But really develop your palate. In other words, don't be fussy. Try everything, eat everything, go in with an open mind. Hi James, thank you. It's nice of you to say. Hi Catherine, thank you. Perfect match, the two of us. I think she means the two of us.
I think she does, because I'm perfect.
Dear me, it's going to her head. And she's not even having any wine. She doesn't drink. It's completely teetotal. Questions. Can you tell us your thoughts about your possible Mexican recipes? Well, I can, Ruby, in so much as we are going to be covering stuff that I really enjoyed when I was in Mexico mainly, and the dishes start flowing back into my mind. They may not be the traditional dishes. I will try and do some of the traditional stuff that everybody expects, but dishes like chili en nogada, which is a particularly famous dish from not San Miguel de Allende, it's a little bit near San Miguel, is a dish it's basically a stuffed green pepper. It's decorated with the pomegranate seeds, and it's a national dish of Mexico. So there'll be dishes maybe a lot of you won't have heard of. Atole, which is just a drink, which is so good. It's a way to start your day. So I'm hopefully going to introduce you to some stuff that you haven't tried before, and of course the normal stuff that we all expect. I mean, when you go to a Mexican restaurant, often outside of Mexico, you're going to be just given the usual sort of nachos and tamales, not so much in place, but tamales definitely would be covering. But I'm going to try and keep it more authentic. There's particularly little things. We're doing the healthy smoothie series at the moment. I might try and sort of weave that in amongst the series if I can. Not there are many super healthy drinks that we had in Mexico.
I think we might not be able to do it with that.
Guys, if you have to go, I know this is going to get long. No worries, just say goodbye, and I'll say goodbye to you. How long have we been on? A little while. It's always lovely to chat to you, and I love catching up with everybody. So we've been going for probably an hour or so. I probably shouldn't keep it going much longer. Pepe. Yeah, the Malaysian stuff was heaps of fun. I mean, we've got to do a whole Malaysian series, and there is lots I'm going to be sharing with you on that. I mean, you'll see from the Malaysian trip that we did what fun we had. And we've shared a few recipes that we learned there already, but actually we've got to do a nice Malaysian nod towards our time in Malaysia, which will be happening sometime in the next several months. So Christian Fowler, only been doing this for years, currently working at... So you've been working in a high-end Italian restaurant. And was it Christian asked about?
Yeah, how to be a good cook.
Right. So Christian, yes, it's good to. It's nice to work in an Italian restaurant. I have a lot of friends that have sort of cut their teeth, so to speak, in Italian food, and I spent quite a bit of time in Italy, and you do learn a lot. Tammy from Yo-Yo Max, if she's still in, had a wonderful time in Italy recently. Well, it's probably a year or so back now. Tammy So we know the food culture there is great. The food is, I think what's great about Italian food is the passion that it's delivered with. But you do have to stretch yourself out a little bit as well and try Asian food, try African food, all the different types of European foods as well. But you're doing well. If you're in a nice Italian restaurant, make sure that they're giving you some variety. Make sure they don't just stick you on one service and get you doing the same thing over and over again. If you find that you're in a grind, I shouldn't really say this, but if you find you're in a grind, take the leap, do something different, you know, because there's nothing worse than probably doing the same pasta dish for sort of 5 years on the trot. So sometimes you just got to take those, step off the edge and take those little leaps of faith, and it generally works out for you. You talk to me about it when you decide to. So I'm going to get off now, I think. Love to you all. If you're still watching, say goodbye. Don't need to share this video with your friends and family because these live shows, I'm not sure. Well, actually, we do get people do watch them. If you're watching this after the event, please throw your comments in there because I'm always keeping an eye on them, and be good. Good afternoon. Love to you all, and we will see you tomorrow for the last in the installment of the disgusting Halloween recipes, and I hope you're enjoying those. And then afterwards we've got another couple of days, and then we hit November, where I'm not going to be doing a video every day in November, and I'm just going to chill for a few days and try and recuperate from this fun month that it's been. Love to you all. Take care, and we're going to sit out here in the garden, enjoy the rest of this beautiful sunny afternoon. Night night, good morning, good evening. Stop streaming. Ciao.